Unfiltered, AI technology. Is it beneficial? Can it help us? Let me give you a way that it can. Let's just say there was a company, Virtual Patrol Technologies, that took AI and was able to connect it to your already existing cameras with your already existing infrastructure. There's nothing else added. And they were able to train the camera to detect behaviors, including operational procedures or security procedures. What if that technology was able to train that camera to be a virtual officer? Not to replace the officer, but we all know inmates do those things in order to impede an officer, slow an officer down, or misbehave when they know the officer's not there. But what if that camera on the wall was able to alert you to say something's taking place that is not supposed to happen? And it gives that alert to someone who's already on the post that observes cameras. Well, that technology is going to make you a safer facility. Doesn't replace anybody, makes it safer. Now you know what's going on in the area when you go to it. So let's get into this conversation with Virtual Patrol Technologies and see what they've got. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for coming back. We have a full cast tonight. Let me go ahead and introduce Chris McConnell, sir. How you doing tonight?
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
And we have a special guest host tonight, and that's Alishia McColl from CODIN. Thank you for being here, Alishia.
Good evening.
And we're here tonight, like I said, to talk to the Virtual Patrol Technology Group. JC, you want to go ahead and introduce your group?
Yes, sir. Doing very well, thank you. Got Bryan Rains. He's the CTO. He's the brains behind it. If you want to raise your hand so you know which one, there you go. Got Michael Rains. He's current in the trenches, and you got me. I'm just the CEO and idea guy.
Here we have Mr. Justin Hall, the jailer from Kentucky, is back again. How are you, Justin?
Back again, second time in a row.
Man, everybody watch your valuables. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, everybody take care of that. You never know what it may turn up missing. It's an honor to be back on here tonight with everybody, and especially I've been looking forward to this because we just rolled out their technology at our facility, and I'm still amazed at everything that it does.
Well, let's jump into that. And let's see what JC wants to do about catching us up on what's going on over there at your Nelson County Jail.
Yeah, Justin's been very accommodating. He's been a good host, and we were able to come in and set it up pretty quick, and he's integrated it very well. I'm just going to turn it over to Bryan. Bryan's the man. He knows the gear. He's developed it. So, Bryan, you run with it. We'll slow you down if you go too fast.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jim. And first of all, I just want to say, thank you to you guys. The podcast and Nelson County, you guys have been a really great partner for us here. One of the reasons why we got into this was really to take technology and do some good. Yeah. Michael and I, we got together about a year and a half, about 2 years ago now. It was Christmas time in 2023, and they had in one of his facilities, an offender come in and had committed suicide within 24 hours. And as we started talking about it, I realized that the technology that they had in there was very Stone Age. There was so much that could have been done to prevent these kinds of tragedies. So we started talking about it. And I come from a technology background. I've been working in defense for 25 years now. And as we started thinking about it, there were some real things that we could do. So he and I, we've spent the past year and a half building this thing. And that's what Justin has been, really great. A great host having us come in and install probably one of the best things I've ever done, into his facility. And, our real focus is about saving lives and creating differences in people's lives. There's so many ways that I'm still starting to uncover and unpack, right? How we can use this technology for good. And we're quickly finding it goes way, way beyond corrections, but that's where our heart is, right? That's where we want to make our first impact. And Justin, thank you so much for letting us come in and
thank you all.
Back there.
Yeah, and thank you all as well. I mean, it has definitely made our facility more proactive on just about everything and what I like about it, especially is that from a user standpoint, in our control room center, all of us that work in corrections, you have different people with different IT background. We have some people that's not very, proficient with electronics and stuff, and you have some people that's really good. And even some of the staff that we have in our control room and stuff like that have picked up on it very, very quickly.
Well, hi, JC. Hi, Bryan. Hi, Mike. And welcome to Corrections Unfiltered. I have enjoyed getting to know you guys. Hey, let me get right into this, man. Let me kind of talk about a typical scenario out there, and perhaps you can fill in the blanks. Let's say intel suggests there's tension on a yard between two groups of inmates, and this information is passed on to all shifts, all staff. Let's say this tension is in a particular housing unit. Now, a housing unit officer, especially on day watch, will have several duties throughout their shift to perform, which will take their direct observation off of the general common area. For example, phone calls, radio transmissions. They're in an inmate cell shaken down. They're standing outside the housing unit monitoring an open movement. They're responding to another incident. They're pat searching inmates, or just simply using the restroom. In those examples, your technology, Virtual Patrol Technologies, is still continuously monitoring the unit and assisting the housing unit officer for specific unauthorized or emergency activity. Do I have that right? And if so, can you explain it more?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there. What we're focused on is about augmenting and making your existing staff even better. When they're not watching, they have lots of other jobs they have to do. Our software continues to watch. So what we've really built is the idea of a virtual officer. The field of artificial intelligence is exploding right now. And what we've really built is really a command and control system for our agentic AI. Each one of our officers lives in a camera in a facility, and it watches, right? So when that watch officer needs to work on a report or answer a phone call or make a head call, right? We're continuously watching 24/7, and we can identify pretty reliably things like bites, self-harm, drug use. If you can describe what it is, we can identify it. I know one of the ones that Justin and I have set up was there's a specific door that wasn't alarmed, and now we set that up to where every time that door opens, we can see it and we know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what we're focused on. It's there really to augment the existing staff, right? It's that extra pair of eyes that's watching when you can't. If I'm sure everybody here has sat in front of one of those displays of cameras. I can't imagine having to stand in front of one of those and watch that for an 8-hour shift. There's no way. I mean, I have a pretty narrow attention span anyway, but there's no way I can do that. But with this tool, like, we're continually like augmenting your staff to be better at their job and to identify some of those critical things, and one last thing, it's also in some cases to hold folks accountable as well, right? So if there's something that our system sees, you have to respond to it.
Just a little back history on me for tonight's discussion. So I work out of a main facility located in Washington. And so I am familiar with the corrections and prison settings. And so one of my first questions, because I was very excited for this opportunity, was I wanted to know what that transition looks like using the AI technology service rolling out in existing prison or correction-based technology services, right? So most facilities, most agencies, they have already invested in surveillance technology. What does that transition look like going through your AI technology? What's kind of the roadblocks that we might encounter if we want to consult and reach out for your services? How do we get around that? Can you share with me what it would look like if we retained your services, how that would be incorporated in our existing services that we have right now and contract with.
Good to see you again. So, one of the things that we understand is a lot of times, especially in corrections, budgets are tight. Like if we were to come in and say, look, we have a whole new camera system we want to install in your facility, it's a non-starter. So what we did was we specifically developed our system to be able to be agnostic to cameras. We can come into just about any IP-based camera facility and plug into the existing infrastructure that's already there. So we're there to take your existing infrastructure and give it a whole new facelift to give it an upgrade without having to go in and, drill new holes, run new cables, install new expensive cameras. We take existing infrastructure today and we give it that AI presence that allows all kinds of amazing things.
One of the situations that people brought up when I first started talking about it was you're trying to replace officers, and that's not what this is all about. Inmates rely upon certain tactics to defeat officers. They'll have people stop the officer at the door with some kind of a reason why they have to talk to them, which stops them from getting to places they need to be, or they distract the officer in other ways, visitation rooms, recreation areas, and other stuff. What you can always count on, though, is that camera is going to be there.
Yeah, Pete, if I could jump in right there, I think one thing that we should also think of, and we're so short-staffed right now across the country. Very, very few facilities that we talk to now, or very few agencies we talk to right now, are fully staffed. So hopefully, and it's like you just gave that scenario where an officer is maybe stopped at the door of the pod, and an offender is talking to him, whether he's distracted him or he has a legitimate concern. Hopefully that control room officer is keeping eyes on that other officer, for that visual backup. So that creates blind spots for where other officers are not able to watch those cameras. So absolutely, when the officers are distracted, our system steps in. Is constantly monitoring those cameras. Is still picking up on those alerts. Like Bryan said, it's if you can describe the action, if you can describe a type of scenario or something that you're looking for, we're able to capture those things. And the better that we're able to describe them, the more accurate we are in capturing those things. So it's only going to get better from here. So we've rolled out, it with Justin in Nelson County. Phenomenal facility. He's one of the better facilities that I've seen. His staff really care about the job. His staff really care about the job that they do. He really cares about, not just his staff, but he cares about the community. He cares about the offenders. So one thing we also have to remember is, this is catching offenders doing things that they're not supposed to do, but it's also limiting and mitigating the liability for the officers because we're able to see more. We're able to alert to do more. We're able to pick up on things that even if I was sitting in a control booth watching a camera and I'm like, oh, they're just horseplaying, whatever that they're doing. It's able to make those things to where you have to act on. You have to respond to them. And as any of us know in corrections, the big things that happen always come from small things that lead up to it.
Absolutely.
So if we're catching those small things early, if I'm able to catch a small incident today, I may be able to literally save someone's life tomorrow.
100%.
So that's a good thing about this.
Well said, Michael. And we can send alerts all different kinds of ways. There's that visual cue. We can send text messages where you have, connected devices, emails, any number of different ways. But I wanted to tell just a real quick story about Justin's staff. When they realized what the system did, we caught them one day in the control booth, right? Two of his officers were faking fighting in there just to see if they could set the system off, and it did.
And it did, yeah.
But to me, it was great, right? Even in a facility where, you know, there's serious business going on in there, and
Yeah.
it's such a great community there where they can still have that kind of camaraderie and
Right.
you know, kind of play around in a control booth where, you know, so I thought that was great. That was a lot of fun.
It was, and they had to call to tell me about it and said, "Check the alerts." It did exactly what it was supposed to do, and it was really impressive. I mean, it was.
So they ran a field test for you. Yeah. Okay.
They ran a field test, and it
Yeah.
worked very well.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing this correctly, this AI technology is proactive versus reactive. In other words, instead of just recording an incident with cameras, the virtual officer will actively detect risk behaviors and differentiate emergency activity or critical alerts and unauthorized activity like non-critical alerts. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right, Chris. We separate the two. Some things, you
Mhm.
know, are more critical than others. So, you know, there's also things that, you know, you want to be able to create specific responses. You know, maybe you want to have a special teams that we're collecting some intelligence and you don't want to respond right away, right? You can do that. But additionally, right, where someone's life is in danger, right, you want to be able to have that quick reaction, right? So we do separate those different categories out in our system.
Yeah, no, I just I love the referencing the virtual officer. That's why I was so excited for tonight's discussion. So, especially coming from corrections, and so I come from always a position of risk assessment, right? And so you touched on that really early on in our meeting tonight was the responsibilities and also sometimes the liability we have when there is an unplanned death that occurs in a correctional setting. And so when I was listening, kind of talking about the AI technology and it being proactive, right? Immediately making notifications of something that would potentially be life threatening or constitute a violation based on like the facilities rules and regulations. It's fascinating to me. And so I was really hoping to hear from Justin tonight. Since you have that up and running in your county jail, I would love to hear your personal thoughts on it.
Absolutely. And first, I'll kind of start at the beginning part of it, as far as we were touching on the install. And you know, I've been in this business long enough that you know there's so many different vendors, you know, that will promise you the world, right? You know, they'll promise you everything, and then whenever you sign on the dotted line and you sign up with it, you find out, yeah, it does everything that they said, but you know, it's not really what how it was described to me. And I will say that their solution not only exceeded what I thought it would be, it actually blew it out of the park. And you know, I went to college for IT and ended up being a jailer. So, you know, I've always said I don't know how that happens, but it does. So, from the install to the process of setting up to the implementation was probably one of the easiest and most streamlined installs of any type of IT equipment that I've ever been a part of in my career, to be honest with you. Their entire team, super knowledgeable, and what I like, they're they're always reaching out to me, "Hey, what can I do to improve? What can we do to help make this? I saw this alert. How would you like to change it?" And you know, they're really been phenomenal to deal with. I mean, they send emails to me, you know, and say, "Hey, you know, would you want to try this or you want to try that?" And their customer service has been phenomenal. And when we first got it live, um one thing I'll tell you that's kind of funny, we're one of the facilities that actually we sell correctional electronic cigarettes, right? And part of their technology has where they can turn on, you know, where it has e-cigarette detection. So when we first went live, you would have thought the building was burning down because the e-cigarette detected. We were getting alerts across the board. And so we actually had to go and we had to actually tweak that, you know, we actually had to tweak that. But even like what Bryan was talking about, we have a few doors. You know, my building was built in 1987, and I have a few exit doors that have always been a concern. You know, you want to make sure that they're secure. And we was talking about, okay, alerts, you know, when that door's open, whenever we talked about something, I get an email magically, you know, almost less than 24 hours and say, hey, you know, we've added this to the system. Let's test it. And it's a breath of fresh air for that part of it. But also, I'll tell you another story. I can't remember if we talked about it on the last podcast, but you know, through the course of your career, there are certain incidents that stick with your head. So whenever you go with a technology like this, you may be like, hey, I've had this happen before. Can you detect this? Well, one of which that I had happen a few months ago is I actually had somebody scale a fence and got on the roof of the jail and camped out up there for 2 days, and none of us knew about it. Okay. And so yeah. And so, just to paint the picture, I got a third shift deputy walking in, and I guess the methamphetamine he was on was wearing off. And so he pokes his head off the side of the jail while my deputy's walking out third shift and said, hey, how are you doing? You coming into work? And about scared him to death. And so now we got camera detection of you. Like you said, you're watching a bank of cameras. Somebody is just scaling a fence in 3 or 4 seconds. But now we're getting alerts now, okay? If somebody is on any of those perimeters or walking across there. So that was one problem I had that they was able to turn on and fix instantly. We've had horseplay that could have ended up into a fight that we went in, there was horseplay, deputy went in, tried to correct the behavior. They continued on, set off another alert. So guess what? It went into disciplinary and segregation at that point or whatever, because you've done caused two responses to that dorm. So the amount of stuff that you see that you would have never known that would have happened is it's amazing. I was in our control room today just for a split second. We had an alert possible altercation. Upon review, what it was, there was an inmate walking over to him really quick where he was getting out of the shower and they thought he was going to trip. So the inmate walked over to him real quick and grabbed him. But at the time, if you was to glance up, you would have thought there would have been a fight. So, I mean, it allows you to be so proactive. I'm amazed by it. And I don't say that very often with a lot of different things, but from a company standpoint, implementation standpoint, and just the technology and the customization that they can do with it, I mean, I can't brag on it enough. I mean, Bryan's asked me a couple times, you know, well, is there anything that we can do better? And I mean, I can't think of anything else to make it better because, you know, you hear a lot of people and vendors and stuff that says, oh, well, our product does X, Y, and Z, and theirs does do X, Y, and Z. So I've been very happy with that.
Yeah, so I like to jump in there. And Justin, thank you for those words. I mean, me and Bryan and JC, we spent a lot of time really dedicated to our per product. One thing that I can say is, and Alicia, to kind of go into what you were pointing to there, we take pride in the fact that this system is really customizable to what your facility needs. So the things that Justin needs may not be the same as what the next facility is going to need. So, like Justin said, they do have access to e-cigarettes in their facility, but the next facility may not. So, those things are the things that we really take pride in customizing. One of the other things is, there are some things that you may see in one area of your facility and you would expect that you're not going to see in another area. So, say you're talking about the difference between a kitchen area and a housing unit. So, in a kitchen area, you would expect to see some sort of smoke or steam from the kitchen operations, but in a housing unit, you wouldn't expect to see smoke or steam. So we can customize our system and our settings to be able to pick up on what you want to pick up in those certain areas. So we really take a lot of pride and take a lot of effort in making sure that we customize our system to exactly what you need.
What does it take for you guys to come in and set up?
We're a software solution. And again, we plug into the existing infrastructure that you have in your facilities. So it's very easy for us. It's really about, it's more of an IT job than anything else. And that's another reason why Justin, with his IT background, has just been a great partner here in making this really seamless. there's a lot of things that we have to take into account, especially from a cybersecurity perspective. But once we make it through that, it's actually very easy. These appliances these days, we plug into those appliances via software. We are a cloud forward company, so we're leasing compute in the cloud that we plug into these facilities to be able to do the horsepower. It takes a lot of horsepower to do the kinds of analysis that we're doing. So instead of, bringing in racks and racks of equipment, into a facility, also costing, significant investments, we lease that infrastructure in the cloud, and we're able to augment that and plug that into those facilities. So there's not a lot, Pete, that we're bringing in other than, doing some of the work to, map out where cameras are and what specific IP addresses we need to be able to plug into, and the rest kind of happens in the background. We came into this with the understanding that most facilities just can't afford it. They don't have the budget to do those kinds of large overhauls, tech refreshes to their infrastructure. But where there is opportunity to do that, we can be a partner there too, and come in and help, bring in the best cameras to be able to do the kind of research and to make sure that we're outfitting, those facilities with the best equipment. If that's what they want, if they have the budget for it, we can do that too. But that's not our focus. Our focus is to use existing infrastructure, because we know that's the environment we're coming into.
And I would say, on ours, honestly, facility time, it took on our end what we need to set up less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, where are you at when it comes to the security services that it can provide in identification of drones, right? That might be hovering over correctional settings. Have you already moved in that direction and anticipating being able to use the current surveillance cameras for that type of a sensor or identification? What about, contraband? Through different methods, people coming up, say, for example, throwing something over a fence, right? Have these needs been presented to you yet? Because they are a need.
We have absolutely talked about, and we've looked at those things. And I'm going to go back to what we said a little bit earlier. If you can describe it, we can catch it. So yeah, absolutely. Drones. If the camera can see it, we can describe it. We can alert to it.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. And things like drones or loitering vehicles, we have our system can be set up in a simulation mode. So we simulate all kinds of things like that to see and to go through different scenarios to see what we can and can't detect. Drones, absolutely, right? Loitering vehicles, loitering people, in different areas, we can catch, all of those different types of things. I know even in Justin's facility, along one of his fence lines, we're catching people like walking by there all the time. In fact, I know in one of his areas, you wouldn't think there'd be people back there, but we catch people back there all the time. We put those detectors on and
Yeah.
we catch when people are back there. So just like Michael said, if you can describe it, we can detect it. We haven't rolled that out in a live scenario yet, but I'm just itching, right, for the right facility and the right camera to do that.
Could somebody explain to me, from the technology's identification, a violation has occurred, there's a concern. What does that look like, say, for example, like me as an investigator? How do I get that notification? How fast does it report out to me? What would that look like for me in my correctional setting?
Sure. It's very simple. We tried to really put a lot of thought into our dashboard, because what we're trying to do is take an extremely complex environment and boil it down to, let me view this entire facility. In this case, in Justin's facility, let's boil that down to one dashboard. And that's what we do. So every single camera is represented by a virtual officer on his dashboard. And it's constantly going through, and monitoring and evaluating every single area of his facility. And when something happens, that virtual officer it starts flashing, either yellow or red, depending on the type of alert. So you get a visual cue that said, this is what's going on in this specific area, you know. So there is some text there that tells you which area it's affected. And then when you click on that, you can actually view what the technology, what the officer triggered on, right? It tells you what the alert is. You can visually see what's going on. And then there's also the auditory, you know, so there's also an auditory alarm that goes off as well.
Mhm.
So if a watch officer is focused on filling out a report or they're on the phone, they hear it. They know to go to look at it as well. And then the final cue is we have all kinds of ways to set off electronic cues as well. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, we can send things like text messages and emails,
Yeah.
those kind of digital alerts that, you know, we can send even in back channel. So, you know, if there's a security officer that, you know, they want to know, even when they're at home, when something's happening, we can send those cues to let them know, to give them that situational awareness. And that's really what it's about, right? It helps the officers focus on what is important in their facility. So if you think about, you know, 100 or 200 cameras, it's impossible. You can't look at 200 cameras at one time. But with our technology, you can, because we can provide you with the focus, the things that are most important right now that you need to focus on. And that's really what the value proposition is here.
I wanted to ask for agencies, states that are considering investing in this AI technology. Um, as we kind of said earlier in this meeting, there are budget crises happening all over the country, budget limitations, challenges that come with that. Are you willing to be flexible in the length of your contracts with state agencies?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So, yeah, we're totally open to it. It's like what we care about is saving lives. So we're open to whatever it takes for that state to be comfortable. If it's a month to month contract, we can do it. If it's a year contract, if we want to set it up on a 5-year contract, whatever's most comfortable for that state, you know, and their budgetary needs. And then also same thing with the budget type stuff. You know, we're flexible with that too. You know, we have to make some money, but you know, we don't have to make the bank. You know, it's about saving the lives. And yeah, that's the bottom line on that one. It's about the lives. So just like we can, you know, go from 0 to 10,000 cameras and, you know, identify anything in between, the same thing goes with that. You know, we're willing to work with whatever state and whatever budgets they have, all the way down to the county jails, you know, with smaller budget, you know, and Justin can tell you about that. You know, we're willing to help them out.
Yeah, yeah, and to kind of add to that, and the reason that we are flexible and the reason that we're willing to work because, truthfully, we see the value in what we have to offer here. We know that once the facilities or the agencies are seeing the limitations of the liability, you know, to where, you know, they're not going to be spending hopefully the money on the legal liabilities because we're out there seeing the things that they're not seeing. It's going to be hard to get rid of us because we're going to be offering so much value. So we're absolutely willing to work with states, with the counties and the different agencies. And it's like JC said, it's like Bryan said earlier. You know, when we started this, our main goal when we started was to save lives. It's grown to so much more than that. Sure, you know, I'm on the other side of a lot of people's thoughts where, you know, everybody thinks, hey, these people are incarcerated. We're just there to keep them locked up. Well, you know, I'm on the other side of that a little bit because my main job is the protection of the general public. So you know what? What am I doing to help these people so when they get back out, what I did while they were inside is still protecting the general public. You know, how am I changing people's lives, their thought, you know, so am I able to see things and be proactive? And I love that we said that because how often have we said in the field of corrections, I'm tired of being reactive to everything that we
Yeah.
do. You know, I love the fact that we're proactive about this stuff. So hey, we're saving lives and we're changing lives. So I'm going to be protecting the general public after they get out too. So I think that's big.
That's
Yeah.
outstanding.
Now you're having access to a facility security cameras, and I imagine that data is being stored outside of what that normal structure is for that facility's memory of all their cameras and stuff. So do you have to set up some kind of an agreement with them as far as who has access or who you can give that information to?
Yeah, it's a great question, Pete. And everything we do in a secure way, right? There's all kinds of cybersecurity that we have to take into account. Things like data in transit, right? Are we encrypting the data as it is, coming in and out of a facility? Are we encrypting that data as it's being stored for evaluation? Ultimately, we're not focused on storing large amounts of data because Justin already has a system that does that, right? He's already got a whole process in place to be able to capture video and capture it for evidence and write up those reports. He doesn't really need us for that, right? But what he does need us for is that reactive piece. But yes, that's a really great point, Pete, right? We have to be really, really careful with that data. And we put in a lot of work and a heart, to make sure that we're compliant with, right now we focus on FedRAMP, right? FedRAMP is a program that you can manage your cybersecurity all the way up to like DoD top secret SCI level, right? So we operate the same way that we would operate in a military in a military fashion. So making sure that data is protected and secure. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And we take it serious.
I want to add one thing. Alishia, where you're talking about the drug detection portion of it, I do want to add that it's phenomenal. And I'll tell you, as far as being proactive, luckily, this wasn't drugs, but we had a canteen day, right? A lot of them get like packets of like sugar and stuff like that. From the camera's distance, an inmate was literally putting sugar on a plate and was lining it up to actually put into his cup. But looking at it on a camera, it looked like he was getting ready to make a line to actually snort, and it proactively alerted us on that, which was phenomenal. I mean, so just to tell you, it's amazing.
That's
funny.
that's impressive.
Yes.
Yeah, one more point just to go back and thank you for that story, Justin. I did see the one little write up on that, and I kind of giggled because I think it was Kool-Aid,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
But to Michael's point, just to riff off of what he was saying for a second, this really is about changing lives and public safety, and we're seeing all kinds of different ways that we're affecting that. Things that I never really thought of. We mentioned horseplay. That escalation, in a county jail like where Justin's facility is, if say an offender is in there for something, he messed up, maybe it's something like a lot of traffic tickets, maybe it's something that's not violent, but he needs to be where he is for that period of time. If he were to have an escalation through like horseplay, for example, and maybe it's a bad day, for everybody, and there's an altercation, now that same person who was in for traffic tickets or for reckless driving, now they're facing, assault and battery, right? They're potentially going to prison now for years instead of 30 days, right? So by us being proactive and getting in front of some of these situations, I can see where, we can limit the sort of I don't know what you call it, Michael, is it institutionalization? When someone goes in, maybe if it's something innocuous, but next thing you know, they're institutionalized, and what would have been 30 to 60 days, now it's 5 years. And during that 5-year time period, it's going to change a person, and maybe it ends a longer career in a facility. So I love the fact that we can be proactive and get in front of some of these things and really change the course of someone's life, in a positive way. So
Yeah. And Pete, that also brings up another thing. You're talking about having to review those cameras and watch all this footage. Well, that's something else that, that we don't that Bryan can tell you more about, but we can also go through footage. So let's say if we want to review something that's happened in your facility a while back, and you want to send us, 5 hours worth of camera footage, we can go through and, run that through also and, tell you what's going on. So it doesn't have to be live. We could also review past stuff.
That's a great point, Jim. And, we could also, as I mentioned earlier, we can go into sort of a simulation mode where we can take past footage. So if you have an incident and you say, well, could we detect this in the future? It's very easy for us to plug this in, run it through its paces and tell you whether or not we would have detected, specific incidences. And if we can't, we can always create, very quickly, modifications to be able to detect those things.
Every correctional facility will deal with their fair share of gang activity and overdoses and assaults, contraband, self-harm, introductions. That's the cold, hard truth and realities of prison life. And as Mike said, it's no secret there are staffing shortages throughout the country in jails, prisons, and detention centers. So to me, this is a no-brainer. It's low risk, high reward. But if a decision maker out there is considering your system, Virtual Patrol Technologies, can you tell them about your risk-free pilot program?
Yes. So what we're doing is we're offering risk-free pilot. So basically, if you wanted us to come in your facility and you say, we don't have the budget, but at this time we don't have it, but we want to find out if this actually works. So we can come in, we'll set it up, we'll run you a 60-day pilot, at cost, but it's not a contract. So it's totally risk-free. At the end of that time, if you're like, hey, we don't like your system, get out, then we just kind of pick up and go away. But, the reason we're offering that is because we know that's not what's going to happen. Once you use the system, you're not going to know how to live without it. Justin, you could probably talk to that. Would you, once you start using it and you start getting all these alerts as far as, and being able to see what's going on in the background and really understand what's going on in your prison, excessive horseplay, stuff like that, nothing ever just happens. It's always a lead up.
Once you figure out how much stuff you are missing, and this system points out how much stuff you are actually missing, because I have cameras in my booking area, in my control room. There's people there always glancing, but like what everybody said, you get a phone call, you take your eyes off a camera, an incident happens. I cannot see us not having this now because of the amount of stuff that we have found that I would have never known about. There's no telling if they was to go back 6 months on everything, what all would be on there. I'd be scared to look, to be honest with you, but it's pretty awesome.
And at the end of the day, it all comes down to officer safety, and that's what you guys are doing, is you're improving that officer safety. And we've already shattered the fact that you're not replacing officers. You're not trying to get rid of human beings. You're enhancing their safety capabilities. They know things are going on before they walk in that pod. They've had an alert tell them about behaviors that are concerning before they walk out on that rec yard. They know when they go out to do the fence check that there was something out there that was concerning.
Sure. And I like to just point out and just make this one comment if I can. And I've talked about, being proactive and being there to be able to see what these offenders are doing, because we want to put these offenders back out onto the street better than when we got them. At the same time, a large part of our goal is to making sure that officer is able to go home to their family at the end of the day safe.
Right there.
Right there.
Right there. Yes, sir.
So many states, including mine, we've been through. Virginia just went through it. We care about our officers. They're our family. So if we can do just one thing to catch one action that's going to save an officer, it's paid for itself.
That's awesome.
In my opinion.
Yeah. What I was going to say, Chris, to final on yours was, yeah, whatever a state needs, whatever an entity needs, just give us a call and talk to us. We will help you out however we can. And if we're not right for you, that's fine. We can give you, we can point you in the right direction. So it's about saving the lives, and it's about helping our officers, and that's all we care about. Whether we do it or somebody else, that's what matters.
And then, JC, for people who are looking at potentially wanting to make contact for these services to get them incorporated at their state or local levels, how are we to contact you? What's the best way to communicate with you?
So there's a couple of different ways. You could always go to the website. It's virtualpatrol.org. You can find one of us on LinkedIn, JC Rains, Michael Rains, Bryan Rains, Virtual Patrol Technologies. We're pretty easy. Call Justin at home if you need to. I'll put out his
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody else does. Go right ahead.
But yeah, you can and if you can just give us a call. We all pick up the phone. We're not shy about that. So it doesn't go through an answer machine or anything like that. You contact us directly, and we'll help you however we can.
Hey, Virtual Patrol, the Rain brothers. We do want to say thank you, because it's obvious it's not about replacing the officer. It's enhancing the officer. It's protecting the officer. You've got a system in place where you can tie into some cameras. You can tie into all cameras. And you've even got a way to introduce it so you can prove, like Justin said, you can prove that it's a viable tool that you need to have, not want to have. So thank you so much. If you guys have any closing comments, I turn it all over to you. And thank you for being on Corrections Unfiltered.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, I just want to say thank you for you guys. I think what you guys are doing is amazing. I really appreciate you guys having us on and giving us this platform to talk about what we're doing. And really just a big thanks to Justin. He took a little bit of a chance on us, not knowing, what exactly to expect. And he's a partner for life. And, anyone who wants to go on this journey with us, right? We would love to hear from you. Reach out to us. And let's make a difference. We're really proud of this. And if anything, also just a little plug for myself. We are the Rains brothers. We all live in different areas, and it's been great for me to really use this to reconnect with my brothers. It's been great. So
that's great.
I'm blessed there as well.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
That's a
Thank
win-win.
you so much.
Win-win.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.